Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I am Abe with Mystic Genmara, a small town mystic from the middle of Idaho. And tonight we are going back to the series I'm doing called Myth and Tarot, which is where I introduce you to a creature that you may not have heard of, you may have, from the spiritual community. Most of the time these will not be gods, they'll be spirits or animals from myths and legends. Sometimes there'll be some deities tossed in there just for interest, and then afterwards we'll do a general tarot reading for that particular group or creature. And tonight is one that you may or may not have heard of, at least not in a way you might be familiar with. We'll go with that. And that is the Dryad. Sometimes it's said a little differently than that, but with my the way I talk, we'll call it Dryad. So Dryads are a forest spirit, usually seen as a nymph-like creature, inhabiting a forest or a tree, generally associated with an oak tree. Sorry, we got handwritten notes today. So, and that's from the Oxford English Dictionary. Now, the first time that we see the word Dryad written out in a language that we would recognize was used in or around 1700 to 1100 BC by the Greeks. Obviously, they were in stories long before this, but this was when we really start to see that term taking root and becoming a bit more popular. And some of the older legends, we'll just kind of bounce around here a little bit. Some of the older legends talk about the Dryads were spirits of the trees that protected the young Zeus from his angry child-eating father Kronos. We might go over Kronos, just him in general, because he was a messed up individual. Anyway, Dryads, in a lot of beliefs, are cousins to the Fae. Although related distantly to the fairies and the Fae, the Dryads tend to be much more shy. That's one thing with them. If you ever start wanting to work with them, it might take a bit, because they're very shy. They're significantly less mischievous than the rest of the Fae. They're less likely to hide your keys or things like that. And unlike their nearly immortal and in some cases immortal cousins, the Fae, the Dryads, according to most myths, only live as long as the tree that they are inhabiting. So some of them can live as redwood Dryads for several hundred years, and other ones, say like an aspen, may only get 5 to 10. So their lives are unique in that aspect. So Dryads in general are female, but there are male versions as well, and they're called the Drus, D-R-U-S. So it's, again, you're not dealing with an exclusionary group. They have both. Just kind of depends on when you start working with trees. The spirit that works, that'll come through first, is usually the Dryad spirit. Doesn't always the case, but generally that's the case. Cool. Where is that from? I'm gonna have to probably ban somebody. That's awesome. Oddly enough, you're not showing up in the YouTube chat. Okay, we'll see what that's all about. Sorry, something popped up here. Sulemi. Not sure what that's all. Anyway, the most popular of the Dryads is Daphne, the daughter of a river god who's pursued by Apollo. Of course she was. The Dryad prayed to her dad, the river god, and he turned her into a laurel tree to basically escape Apollo's amorous attention. Originally, they were thought to be nymph spirits, specifically who lived in oak trees, but the belief became nymph-like that lived in a multitude of different trees. It was believed that the tree's life force was directly tied, as I said earlier, to the nymphs. So when the tree's life force diminished, so did the power of the nymph. In some fantasy or fairy tale stories, they are human tree hybrids, which are always interesting to see. Think kind of like the Ents in the Lord of the Rings series, along those lines. Doesn't always mean that's exactly what they are, but it's along that line. Dryads are associated with sacred groves. So if there's like a sacred circle of trees, more than likely you have dryads guarding it. And the goddess Artemis. Artemis was friend and patron to almost all of the all of the nymphs in general, but the dryads in specific. In some cases, she was thought to be the mother of the dryads, or at least the dryads would see her as mother. So that was kind of a cool little takeaway there. Some dryads are associated with specific types of trees, and there's different basically clubs within the group. The Daphne, are specific to the laurel tree, which is the Daphne from earlier with that Apollo was chasing. Oh, good grief. I wrote down phonetics on this, so bear with me. Epilmides are associated with fruit trees, and they have an odd side note here. They guard sheep as well. Not quite sure how that crossover occurred, but that is what that family does. We have the Hamadryads, which work specifically with oak and poplar trees. The Malays, M-E-L-I-A-E, Malay, are associated with ash trees specific. The Dryads work with the walnut trees, and the Oreda, which works with the mountain conifer family. So it's with like blue spruce, Douglas fir, redwoods, things like that. Those work with the Orade clans. There is a belief and association that led to some interesting legal aspects back in the day in Greece. And that was, there were very specific laws concerning harming trees as punishable offenses. They didn't always get punished, but there were laws on the books. And what was interesting is they were very specific to sacred groves. Like, you had to give offerings, you had to ask a priest or priestess to talk to the tree spirits before you could even cut down a tree. So you have this interesting crossover that goes on in that specific class. And it's because the trees were sacred. Now, before we get into the tarot reading here, we'll go a little bit more. I'm going to give you some simple exercises, if you're interested, to connect with tree spirits. The first thing, you want to be somewhere quiet. Turn off the headphones, turn off the phone, turn it down at least. Take off your shoes. This is pretty much key from my experience with working with them. There's something about the rubber in your shoes that's going to block you from connecting fully. So you want to be barefoot to even take your socks off. And I know it sounds weird, but you'll notice just doing that, you're going to connect with the earth itself, allowing you to actually connect with the dryads as well. Now, some people can face a tree with their bare feet, put their hands directly on the trunk, and they can connect through that way. And I can do that sometimes, but there's another way to do it that's a little bit easier for me. And that is still barefoot, sit down next to the tree. Don't worry about what's on the tree, that's not the purpose here. But sit down next to it and lean back against the tree so that your spine is touching the tree. And if it's a smaller tree like an aspen, it'll fit within that ridge of muscle along your back, which touches your spine. If it's a little bit bigger tree, just lean back so that you're touching it. Even resting your head back against the tree is another way just to really connect in. Allow yourself to sit there and be quiet. Don't worry about bugs. Don't worry about noises. Just be quiet. Breathing deeply, focusing on your breath, belly breathing. So you're just in and out, and feel the energy from the tree. Feel the energy from the ground. Eventually, not always, but eventually you may become aware of a presence near you coming from the tree. In that case, that is the Dryad spirit coming forward. When that happens, you don't have to say it out loud. I usually do just because of my personality. Introduce yourself. Just say, hi, I'm your first name. You don't have to give your full name, just your first name. And wait for a response. Just breathe quietly and listen. And it might be a listening from here. You might actually hear, which is even cooler. But allow yourself to just take that time. And if nothing else, even if you don't get immediate connection, and that happens too, enjoy the sensation of being grounded and connecting to nature. There's a book I linked in the description that talks about tree bathing, forest bathing, and it's along those lines of getting out away from people, by yourself preferably, or with someone that you trust, and just being. It is such an amazing experience. And find somewhere where you can take your shoes off. I know I keep repeating that in a lot of these different videos and meditation talks that I've done, but there's something very special about connecting directly to the earth. Just as a heads up, if you're taking your shoes off and walkly, but just especially the spruce family, just heads up. Something to think about if you want to do that, but it's definitely fun to do. Another way to kind of connect into the Dryad family, connect with tree spirits in general, is to have living trees within your house or on your property. And this is where the very amazing and delicate art of bonsai comes in. Bonsai is a very ancient tradition of making full-grown trees small. Sometimes they're just big, sometimes there's 2-3 feet tall, but they look like they are full size, and they're literally not. I didn't have time to find any cool pictures, I'm sorry about that, but I did put a couple of starter kits if you want to start from seed. And to start from seed in this respect, I would personally go outside, take your seeds with you, and hold them up to God's source, divine energy, and ask that energy to awaken the Dryad within. That way, when you plant the seeds, you're actually starting the birthing process for a Dryad as well. That way, when you start to grow your tree, you start to, and this can take years with bonsai, so just heads up. As you're working with it, you can start to connect in deeper to the energy of the Dryad. You can bounce ahead a little bit and just go ahead and do a pre-purchased bonsai tree, get it somewhere where it can be out in the sun, and do the same thing. Offer it up to God's source, divine energy, to awaken the Dryad within, or at least allow the Dryad that's there to introduce itself. And that's, like I said, those are some ways that you can connect in a little bit deeper. I personally like to connect with natural spirits like that specifically because they may not teach you things like, reading, writing, and arithmetic, or how to, win friends and influence people, or whatever else is out there, but they're going to teach you about being you. They're going to teach you how to be more comfortable in your own skin. They can help you understand spiritual growth and development. In a lot of cases, spiritual growth comes from going inside. Dark night of the soul, facing your shadow, walking through the darkness, however you see it, which all ties to being planted, going through those dark periods. Then there's the little bit of growth and stretching. That's when sprouts coming up. And then as you continue forward, you mature into different levels to the point where you start to bloom and bear fruit, at which point you are teaching, training, and helping other people in whatever way that may be. It doesn't always have to be spiritually, but that is ways you can access and work with that type of energy with the Dryads, because they can teach you that. Plant spirits and animal spirit, or plant spirits and tree spirits, herb spirits, things like that, work a lot more with a shamanistic aspect. It's not always ritualistic with working with them, and that's kind of fun in that respect, because you're not structured. You can just go out in nature and there you are. So a couple of ideas on how to work with them. I'm purposely not going into details about this family of tree only has female dryads and this family of tree only does this type of energy, for a simple reason. If you want to connect, go out and connect. From my personal experience, the trees are going to have their own way of showing you what they do and who they are. Sometimes they will give you actual names, which is something that's happened in some of the experiences I've had. Other times they will tell you, just refer to me as poplar, only refer to me as ash. They don't give a specific name, because for them that's not necessary in that aspect. So you could have a lot of different ways of interacting with them, but do try and get out, especially if you're in the summer months. I know in Idaho here it's summertime, like blazing hot summertime, which doesn't mean much if you're talking about you're from Texas, but for Idaho, 85s and 90s is a little bit much. But just go out as much as you can, find a nice tree, talk to it. Lilac trees and shrubs even have dryads in them. It's kind of open in that respect. It doesn't have to be a 300-year-old redwood, but if you have the chance, definitely go talk to that one. But if you're raising your own, seek out God source divine energy to work with the energy of the tree to awaken the dryad or help you connect to it better. If you work with the Greek pantheon, or if you choose to maybe branch out a little bit, ask Artemis to introduce you, because she will when she's in the mood. So because she can be a little bit moody at times, and that's not being anything rude. Look her up historically. She's a powerful deity in her own right, but she has every so often these little moments where you're like, seriously? So with that, if you have any questions, comments, thoughts, even your experiences, you can drop them below. Again, be careful with what you put out there. You don't want to be too personal. But we'll take this little moment here as well to, do the YouTube-y thing. Like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff if you're enjoying this content. And with that, we will hop into the Celtic Cross Tarot spread, which is what I usually do for these readings. And the deck I'm using is the Art Nouveau Tarot deck, and it's linked in the description as well. So the significator, this is where the Dryads are at right now, is the Nine of Chalices. So they're actually in a pretty good place to start off with. They're emotionally balanced, they're emotionally connected, they are feeling very vibrant. I mean, look at the color patterns. If the colors show up here, it's all blues and violets and the golds with accents of red. They're in a very good state overall in this particular moment in time. The Nine of Chalices is showing us that the Dryads are actually in full prosper. They're in bloom, basically. Where they're at emotionally, mentally, they're in a good place. Overall, they are just doing really well right now. And yeah, that's all they're really saying, but they're just saying that they're in a good spot, which is pretty cool. The things that are crossing them, their challenges, are the Two of Pentacles. So there's a little bit of worry and concern. They're looking at the future. They're not really sure how things are going to roll. They're talking about things like proper management of, forests. They're talking about how to reconnect with people because people have been disconnecting from them. They're really wanting to ground their connection back to humanity. They're not wanting to rush out there and shake everyone's hand and hey, hi, we're here. That's not their nature. But they're wanting to reconnect. They want to reach out. But for them to reach out, we kind of have to go to them. They have limited space to move because they are tied to the tree that they live with. So they're kind of in that state of, how do we do this? We want to grow, we want to expand, but here we are. So something to think about when you're out in the woods. Just, maybe say hi to a couple trees. The energy above their higher self is the Five of Pentacles. There's a little bit of sadness, and it comes back to that feeling of not being connected, not being able to work with, not being able to bond like they would like to. The Dryads will communicate with each other. They're not lonely by any stretch, but they do have I'm getting the impression that they want to reach out more so, and they want to be able to interact in a more personal way. They keep showing me planting trees around houses. So if maybe that's where you're questioning, should we plant trees around the house? They're saying yes, not too close, fire danger, but maybe a little fruit tree out in the corner somewhere, a flowering shrub of some form. But they're just kind of looking for ways to how they can reconnect with humanity, and the easiest way is to literally have trees around you. So the unconscious, subconscious, or lower self energy, shadow self you could call that, is the number 8 card. It's the Justice card. The balance is not in their favor right now, and that's the lower frequency energy is they're working with an imbalance. The imbalance is the disconnection from how life is, what they're seeing. They're seeing this imbalance. People are people have become so disconnected from nature and so disconnected from being out amongst the other creatures on this planet, and that includes animals and spirits in the spirit world, to the point where they think they're the only things that are here, and that's an imbalance, and that imbalance is actually bothering them. It's not justice. It's not working with equality, because having technology is great. Being with your friends in the human world's great. Being around all that stuff's great. But we're not connecting anymore, and the Dryads are feeling that disconnect very strongly, is what I'm being told. And they don't mean like rush out, get rid of your house, and go live out in the woods under a rock. They're just saying reconnect, reach out. Technology, good. Nature, good. So find a balance between the two, and that's what they're feeling, is this imbalance is occurring where people don't actually understand. They think they do because they learned in a book. They learned from college. And the Dryads are their underlying energy is like, that's not balance, that's not working. Go out in nature, reconnect. So the immediate past with the Dryads, considering their lifespans, this could be 6 months up to 150 years, is the 10 of Pentacles. A cycle's over. There is something that is ending for them. Their past is a time of things have ended, and it could be the deep connection that there used to be with nature more so than today, but they're kind of almost grieving that loss, but it's in the past. So their recent past has not been the greatest, but something has come to an end. That cycle of being more interacting with the world or with the nature has stopped. They're saying there was a time period in there where there was a great abuse of the forests. There weren't replanting, there weren't selective logging deals, and that did happen, not denying that. But we've improved as humans, and that's the part of them they're like, yes, you're starting to get back there. But that old cycle, that old practice of being more respectful, like the Greeks, like I said, they actually had laws where you didn't cut down trees in certain forests without the priests or priestesses coming out to make sure it was okay. And that cycle is over, and they kind of are sad about that. But their immediate future is the Two of Swords, so there's a reconnection. They're looking forward to this connection. There's happiness, there's joviality, there's this more positive energy moving forward. You're working with Swords energy, so you're dealing with this more truthful, cutting away the nonsense. So they're looking to the future, seeing this cleaner path, this more open connection to the world and with humanity, because they're seeing that there's truth coming forward. People are starting to understand. They are seeing a reawakening amongst people. they're craving that connection with us as humans, and humans are starting to reach out a little bit more, even if they don't fully understand what's going on just yet. But they're seeing it as, yes, it's happening. I mean, look at, they're happy. Very happy people. And it's all because they're reconnecting, they're celebrating this new beginning that is occurring for them. So, their current attitude is the number 4 Emperor. So there's a very stern attitude that they're having right now. Their current mental state, I guess you could call it, it's a bit more masculine, so it's more determined, more pronounced. This is how it should be. Not bad, but they're basically saying it's time. We need to reach out. People need to reach out to us, and we're looking for that connection. But their attitude is a little bit firm, like, enough. We exist. Please connect with us. But they're really saying that they're working with the higher energy of the god energy as well as the goddess energy. For the most part, the reading has been very feminine, which is most of the Dryads are female. But you do have that masculine aspect that's coming forward, and they are working with that masculine divine energy, saying, please, let's connect. Bring it back. Ground yourself in the world and not just be off in La La Land. So their environment is the 3 of Swords. There's a little bit of concern roaming around with these gals right now. And the 3 of Swords is really saying the truth is there. The truth may be a bitter pill to swallow. They want that celebration. They're looking forward to that celebration. But the reality is, for them in the moment, it may not be as clear-cut as they would like it to be. There's still that fear of abusing something the wrong way. There's this fear of tipping the scales too far the other direction, because they're bringing forward this information that a maintained balance with the forest, we work with nature, not against it, is what needs to happen. And that's where they're a little bit of concern. That truthful aspect of the Swords is coming forward to remind them, yes, we know you're looking forward to this awesome future, but there's some things that need to be considered as well, and that includes going too far the other direction. We went too far back in the 40s and 50s and 60s, and then we swung the other direction too far, and they're like, can we find a new balance, a really serious balance where there's some maintenance, there's connection, we tell you when a tree needs to be taken out, you work with us to regrow and replant. There's a give and take, and that's what the 3 of Swords energy with their environment's talking about, is reconnecting in that new awakened type of energy where we work together, not against each other. So their hopes and fears. We have the Knave of Swords. We have a lot of Swords energy. There's a lot of feminine energy in this layout so far. This is only the second masculine card here, so that's a lot of feminine energy, which is more Dryad style anyway. But the Knave of Swords, their fear is that it's going to be a battle, and they don't want that. They want it to be something that is more peaceful. They want to make the connection and the readdressing the balance in a more peaceful way. That doesn't mean one side's right, one side's wrong. They're saying that we need to work together to find a new balance. Humans need the forests need humans. We have to work together, and their fear is that it's going to be a battle. They don't like the battle that they are seeing. There's a way to find a peaceful balance, a peaceful midway between all that, and that's what their hope is for the peace. Their fear is for the violence. So their current hopes and fears are very, very delineated. We want positive, peaceful way of reconnecting, working with each other. We don't want fighting. So that's where their hopes and fears are. Their overall outcome, though, is the 10 of Wands. So their overall outcome is the end of a passionate cycle, this passionate cycle of creation, but there's also a little bit of destruction. Wands are fire, so you have that destructive aspect as well. But when you're talking about a completion, it's the ending of a form of an era, but you're also setting yourself up for a new era. And this is the 10 of Wands is saying the old era has reached its cycle. The fire has burned up, it has burnt to ash and rubble. It's complete, preparing for the next aspect. they're showing me very distinctly the image of a phoenix rising from the ashes in a newly formed body. So the old era, the old ways basically have been burned away. It's time for a rebirth. It's time for the new era of connecting with our tree spirits and our tree friends and family, so to speak. But we are also working again with this more feminine energy, because out of the 10 cards we've pulled today, 2 were masculine and the rest were feminine. So it's really about finding balance and peace, which tends to work more with the feminine. But there still is that a little bit of creative destruction that needs to occur, and that's healthy. You have to tear things down for the next generation to grow up. You have to use things for them to, not just fall over and die and rot. There's a balance, and that's what the Dryads are really hammering into my head right now, is balance. So with that, we will draw this reading to a close, and I hope you guys enjoyed the videos, and I hope you make some connection with a Dryad in the near future whenever you see this video, even though I'm recording it and doing this episode in July. Whenever you get the chance, take your shoes off, go stand outside next to a tree and ask its name. Doesn't matter what tree it is, really doesn't matter what shrub it is. Go talk to it, sit next to it, be with it, be present. Ignore the rest of the world, focus on that one thing, and that thing is the tree and the Dryad that may be living within. So with that, I will let you guys go. Have a great rest of your week. Next week we will be continuing Occult and Crochet. We will be continuing into the foundations of the Golden Dawn next Monday, and I think next Tuesday as well. I haven't decided what I'm doing for this Tuesday yet. I have a list of options. I just haven't decided on one. With that, please, if you're new here, hit the subscribe button so you'll know when I'm going live or when I drop new videos. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. Comment, let me know comments, thoughts, ideas, experiences, even constructive criticism, as long as we're respectful. I think we all could use more respect in the world, more balance. Message from the Dryads. With that, I will talk to you guys later. Have a great rest of your week.